Jack caught a stranger stealing the newborn from Tu Tien. Nam grabbed the newborn from the nurse's hands. "This baby is mine, and I'm taking him now." Lo tried to scream, but no sound came out. Her hand reached toward the bassinet and fell back against the white sheet, fingers curling like a question nobody would answer. Tu Tien stepped between Nam and the baby, her body shaking so hard her teeth clicked together. Jack didn't move. He just looked at Nam's face, and something in his eyes went cold, the way water goes cold before it freezes. The nurse froze with her gloves still wet. The fetal monitor kept beeping, faster now, like it was counting something nobody wanted counted. If you've ever wondered how far a man will go to protect a child that isn't his, keep watching. Tap the like button now, because what happens in this hospital room in the next 10 minutes will change 3 families forever. 2 hours earlier, Ly had gone into labor in Jack's farmhouse kitchen, gripping the edge of the wooden table until her knuckles turned the color of bone. Tu Tien drove. Jack carried Ly to the car in his arms like she weighed nothing. Mrs. Ly had stood at the gate with her rosary, whispering a prayer none of them caught. Nobody had called Nam. Nobody had even said his name in 6 months. Yet here he stood, in a hospital nobody told him about, holding a child the doctors said might not survive the night. Tu Tien whispered without turning her head, "How did he know we were here?" Jack didn't answer. He was watching Nam's left hand. It was trembling, not from rage, from something else, something that looked a lot like fear. "Put him down." Tu Tien's voice cracked in the middle. "She just gave birth. He's premature. He needs the incubator right now." Nam laughed, short, dry, the sound of a man who had practiced laughing in mirrors. "He needs his father. You're not his father." Lu's voice was a whisper from the bed, but every person in the room heard it. Everyone turned. "Nam, you're not. You know you're not. Stop this." The room went still. Even the monitor seemed to hesitate, its beep stretching out longer than it should have. Nam's smile didn't move, but his hand tightened around the baby's blanket until the cloth wrinkled into deep folds. "Pretty story," he said. "Tell it to the police when I file for custody. Tell it to the village. Tell it to Mrs. Ly when she comes asking why her grandson is missing from the hospital records." Jack stepped forward, 1 step. "Give the child to the nurse." "Or what, CEO?" Nam tilted his head. "You'll buy me off again, like last spring? Same envelope, same handshake, same little nod from your mother in the doorway? She thought I didn't see her. I saw her." Tu Tien looked at Jack. Jack didn't look back. He couldn't. The nurse finally moved, slowly, the way you approach an animal that might bite. She reached for the baby. Nam pulled the bundle away from her with a sharp twist of his shoulder, and the newborn made a thin sound, barely a cry, more like a breath that didn't fit inside the small body. Ly tried to sit up. She got her elbow under her and collapsed back down, her face white as the pillow. The IV line in her arm pulled tight and a drop of blood bloomed at the tape. "Nam, please." Ly was crying now, but quietly, the way exhausted people cry. "He's sick. He needs the machine. Please, just let them take him. Then say whatever you want. Stand on the table. Tell every secret you know. Just let them take him first. Then tell the truth." Nam's voice dropped to something softer, more dangerous, almost gentle. "In front of everyone. Right now. Whose baby is this?" Ly looked at Jack. Jack felt his chest tighten in a way he had not felt since he was a boy standing at his father's grave. He had not expected that look. Not here, not now, not from her. Tu Tien saw it too. Her hand, which had been gripping Jack's sleeve, slowly let go. The fabric where her fingers had been was creased into the shape of her grip, 4 small valleys in the white cotton. "Tu Tien," Jack started. "Don't." She wasn't looking at him. She was looking at Ly. Her voice came out steady, but only because she was holding it that way with both hands. "Ly, look at me. Whose baby is this?" Ly closed her eyes. A tear slid down sideways into her hair. "I don't know." "Yes, you do." Tien's voice was soft. Too soft. Dangerously soft. "You came to our house 6 months ago. You were already pregnant. You stayed. You ate at our table. You let my mother-in-law pray over you every morning. You called her mother. You held her hand at dawn when she taught you how to roll rice paper. So look at me and tell me, whose baby?" The fetal monitor beeped twice, fast, then slow, then fast again. The nurse said, "We need to put him in the incubator, now. Please, he's losing color." Nobody moved. Nam laughed again, but it sounded different this time. Thinner. Something inside it was cracking. She won't say it because she's ashamed, so I'll say it for her. He looked at Jack, eyes bright with something that wasn't joy. "You should ask your mother why she paid Loke's hospital bill last month while you were in Singapore, while your wife was at the market. Ask her." Tu Tien's head turned sharply toward Jack. Jack said, "What? Mrs. Lassie?" Nam's smile widened. "She wired 30 million to Lou's account 3 weeks ago. Want to see the screenshot? I have it." He pulled out his phone with the hand not holding the baby. The screen lit up his face from below, and for a second he looked older than he was. "La showed me." Before she ran off pretending to be the noble pregnant woman in your kitchen, sweeping your floors, calling your wife sister. Take a moment right now and tell me in the comments, if you were Jack, what would you do in this room? Would you protect the baby or demand the truth from your own mother first? I read every comment, and the answer might surprise you by the end of this video. The newborn made another thin sound, weaker now. The cry barely made it past the blanket. Tu Tien stepped back, just one step, but Jack felt it like the floor moved beneath him. "Mom wouldn't?" Jack stopped. He looked at Lyca. "Lyca, did my mother send you money?" Lyca didn't answer. "Lyca, yes." Her voice was almost gone. "She did. But not for what he thinks, not for what you're thinking right now. Aunt Jack, please, not for what you're thinking." "Then for what?" Tu Tien said. Her voice was no longer soft. Lepu opened her eyes. They were red and wet and somehow still afraid. "For the baby," she said the baby was. The hospital door swung open again. Mrs. Ly Shi walked in. She was holding the small wooden rosary, the way she always did when she was afraid, the way she had held it the night Jack's father died. Her hair was unpinned. Her shoes didn't match. One slipper, one canvas shoe with mud on the toe. She had run from somewhere and she had not stopped to think about what she was wearing. She saw Nam. She saw the baby in his arms. And her face changed in a way Jack had never seen before. Not anger, not surprise, recognition. The kind of recognition a person earns by years of waiting for a particular moment to arrive at her door. "Put him down," Mrs. Ly Shi said. Her voice was steady. "Nam, put my grandson down." The room stopped breathing. Tu Tien said, "You're what?" Mrs. Ly didn't take her eyes off Nam. "Put him down before I call the police and tell them what you did to Hung." Nam's hand went still around the blanket. Jack said, "Mom, who is Hung?" Mrs. Ly Shi looked at Jack. For a long moment, she didn't speak. Her lips moved without sound, the way she prayed when she didn't want anyone to hear. Then she said, "Hung was your brother, the one we never told you about." Tu Tien made a sound, not a word, just a small broken sound, like air leaving a room through a closing door. "My brother." Jack's voice didn't sound like his own. "I had a brother. You had an older brother. He was 11 when you were born. Your father sent him to live with my sister in Yalit. We told you he was a cousin who died young. We told you the photo on the altar was someone else." Mrs. Ly's eyes didn't move from Nam. "He died last year. He was carrying Leish's child when it happened, or rather, Leish was carrying his. And the man holding your nephew right now," Mrs. Ly Shi continued, "was the last person to see him alive." Nam laughed, but it was wrong. The laugh had no shape. It came out and stopped halfway. "She's lying. The old woman is finally lying. After all those years of pretending to be holy." "Hung died last year," Mrs. Ly Shi said, still calm, still holding the rosary, the wood pressed white against her palm. "Lee was carrying his child when it happened. Nam knew. Nam was there. The police said it was an accident on the mountain road. I never believed them. I have not slept a full night since." She took one step closer. "Nam, give me my grandson. I will not ask again." Nam looked at the baby in his arms, then at Lau, then at Jack, then back at the baby. His mouth opened. No sound came out. For 1 second, Jack thought Nam would put the child down. He didn't. He turned and ran. The nurse screamed. Tu Tien moved first, faster than Jack had ever seen her move, and caught Nam at the door, both hands fisted in the baby blanket. Nam shoved her with his shoulder. She hit the wall and didn't fall, but the baby was loose in the air for half a second. Half a second that lasted a year before Jack caught him properly with both hands. The way you catch something that weighs nothing and means everything. The nurse was already there, taking the child from Jack's arms, running with him down the corridor. The incubator was 3 doors down. Jack heard her shoes slapping the tile. He heard the doors. He heard nothing else. Nam was on the floor now. Hospital security had come from somewhere, 2 of them, big men in blue, faces blank. They were already on him, twisting his arms behind his back. Nam was shouting something. Jack couldn't hear what. The shape of his mouth said a name. It might have been hung. It might have been a different word entirely. Tu Tien was breathing hard against the wall, one hand at her throat. Mrs. Ly Tu was crying without making any noise, the rosary still in her hand, the beads moving one by one between her thumb and finger. Cal was unconscious, or pretending to be. Jack couldn't tell which, and he wasn't sure it mattered anymore. Jack stood in the middle of the room with his empty hands open in front of him. They were shaking. He had not noticed when they started. "Mom," his voice was very quiet, "I had a brother. You had a brother, and you never told me. For 30 years. I couldn't. Why?" Mrs. Ly Tu looked at Lu on the bed. The rosary stopped moving in her hand. "Because the man who killed him is not Nam." Tu Tien's head turned. "Nam was there," Mrs. Ly Tu said. "Nam helped, but Nam is not the one who paid for it. And I was afraid of who it was. I have been afraid for a year. Every night I have been afraid. Every time you came home from the office, I was afraid." Jack said, "Who paid him?" His mother didn't answer. "Mom, who paid him?" Jack's phone rang in his pocket. He didn't move at first. The ring kept going. Tu Tien was looking at him. Mrs. Ly Tu was looking at the floor, the rosary loose in her fingers now. He pulled the phone out. Unknown number. The screen was bright in the dim corridor light coming through the open door. He looked at Tu Tien. Tu Tien looked back. Neither of them spoke. He answered. A woman's voice, older than Ly Tu. Calm in a way that wasn't calm at all. The calm of a person who had rehearsed this call many times in a small room alone. "Mr. Jack? My name is Hyung. I was your brother's wife before Ligon. I just heard the baby was born tonight. There's something you need to know about the child. And about your mother. Can we meet tonight? I'm already in the city. I've been in the city for 3 days waiting for this call." Jack didn't answer. The woman said, "It's about who paid Nam to come to the hospital today. And it's about why your mother sent that money to Ly. The 30 million is not what you think it is. None of this is what you think it is. Ly doesn't even know." The line stayed open. Jack looked at his mother. Mrs. Ly Tu was staring at the floor, her shoulders very still. Tu Tien whispered, "Jack? Who is it?" Jack lowered the phone slowly from his ear. Down the hall, the incubator alarm started ringing. A sharp electronic sound, 3 short tones, then a pause, then 3 more. A doctor shouted something. Footsteps ran toward the sound, not away. Mrs. Ly Tu looked up. Her face was white. "That's the code blue," she said. "That's the baby." Jack started to run. The phone in his hand was still connected. The woman on the other end was still there. As Jack ran down the corridor, his shoes loud on the tile, he heard her voice, small and clear against his ear. "Mr. Jack, don't let your mother near the incubator. Whatever you do tonight, don't let her near him." Jack ran faster. Behind him, somewhere in the room he had just left, his mother was already standing up. If this story is pulling you in, and I think it is, do me one favor before you click away. Subscribe to the channel and turn on the bell because part 3 drops in 48 hours and you do not want to miss what Hing tells Jack tonight, the truth about Mrs. Zach. Lucy is something nobody in this family is ready to hear. Hit subscribe now. I'll see you in the next part.